Day 571, Wednesday, January 15th. Habakkuk, NKJV, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on Shigionoth. O Lord, I have heard your speech and was afraid, O Lord. Revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years make it known. In wrath remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light, he had rays flashing from his hand, and there his power was hidden. Before him went pestilence, and fever followed at his feet. He stood and measured the earth, he looked and startled the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered, the perpetual hills bowed. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, the curtains of the land of Midian trembled. O Lord, were you displeased with the rivers? Was your anger against the rivers? Was your wrath against the sea? That you rode on your horses, your chariots of salvation? Your bow was made quite ready. Oaths were sworn over your arrows. Selah, you divided the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered its voice and lifted its hands on high. The sun and moon stood still in their habitation. At the light of your arrows they went, at the shining of your glittering spear. You marched through the land in indignation. You trampled the nations in anger. You went forth for the salvation of your people, for salvation with your anointed. You struck the head from the house of the wicked, by laying bare from foundation to neck. Selah, you thrust through with his own arrows the head of his villages. They came out like a whirlwind to scatter me. Their rejoicing was like feasting on the poor in secret. You walked through the sea with your horses, through the heap of great waters. When I heard, my body trembled, my lips quivered at the voice, rottenness entered my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. When he comes up to the people, he will invade them with his troops. Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, he will make my feet like deer's feet, and he will make me walk on my high hills. To the chief musician, with my stringed instruments. Daily Deep Dive. The UCG reading plan states, Habakkuk 3 is a prayer of Habakkuk arranged as a psalm. Observe, for instance, the musical term Selah in verses 3, 9, and 13, which may denote a musical rest or interlude, and the liturgical note at the end of verse 19, to the chief musician, which occurs in the heading of 55 psalms, and with my stringed instruments, which essentially appears in the heading of several psalms. In verse 1, Shigionoth is apparently the plural of Shiggaion, which occurs in the heading of Psalm 7. The word Shiggaion comes from shaga, to wander, a wandering song. Adam Clark's commentary, note on Psalm 7, see note on Habakkuk 3:1. It is apparently an indication of the musical setting to be employed for this poem. It may derive from a verbal root meaning to reel or to air, and if so points to some irregular rhythmic mode. At all events, as when such words occur in psalm titles, it points to the use of this hymn in temple worship. New Bible Commentary, note on verse. Having heard the details of God's coming judgment, Habakkuk is sobered and states his concern, verse 2, apparently for his own people but perhaps also for the rest of mankind, even including the Babylonians. While he asks that God revive his mighty works of old in these years, same verse Tanakh, that he would act soon to set things right, he pleads with God to exercise mercy in the dealing out of his judgment. Habakkuk then reviews some of God's awesome works of the past, his appearance in great power and might at Mount Sinai and his judgments through the wilderness wanderings, verses 37. His division of the Red Sea to save his people and destroy the Egyptians, and perhaps his division of the Jordan River, so the Israelites could invade Canaan, verses 8 to 10. His judgment on other nations when he intervened for Israel in battle, verses 1115. These poetic descriptions are intended to pull away the veil of space and time and look beyond the material universe to sense God's elemental power unleashed in judgment. The specific incidents in which God's anger flared are only hinted at. What we are to realize is that the historical events, as terrible as they are, pale when compared to the burning anger of God which the material universe currently conceals. How awful it will be for those who one day experience that anger face to face. Bible Reader's Companion, note on verses 3 to 15. The prophet trembles at the prospect of people having to face the unleashed power of the Creator, verse 16. But he then states that he will stand through whatever may come, making him an example to others of living faith, verses 17 to 19. Habakkuk now trembles and melts with fear as he seems to hear the oncoming march of God. The end of the verse, i.e. 16th, seems full of paradox. How can he tremble and totter and at the same time quietly wait with an apparently assured calm? Continuing in verses 17 to 18, his assurance is born of the living faith which these verses so beautifully express. Though everything which, humanly speaking, supports life may fail, yet he can now rejoice in the Lord. Personal faith is the practical answer to life's discontents, the contemplation of the history of God with his people that all his deeds are for the salvation of thy people. v13 now leads the prophet to rejoice in the God of my salvation. Concluding in verse 19, thus Habakkuk has discovered the answer to his initial questioning, and his deep contentment with the answer is expressed in the testimony that he makes my feet like hinds' feet. He feels as if he is walking on air, so light-hearted and sure-footed is he. Not even the most trying high places cf. dt, through which life's path may lead, can daunt the man of faith. New Bible Commentary, notes on verses. Let us all keep this focus as we face the difficult times ahead, for beyond them lie better days than mankind has ever seen. End.